Hey, I'm Sadi and welcome to Sadi's Tea, and to our first double review on the channel of the HGUC Gym Command Colony and Space Type. One of the earliest gym models in the mainline HG roster, and two kits that are basically the same, so I thought, why not tackle both? Plus, it'd make it easier to choose between which one of these two kits you'd rather buy if you only had the option for one of them. Anyhow, both are packaged in the standard HGUC box layout, showing us on the side that the standard gym command, which is of course the colony type, is 046 in the line, with the space type coming later as 051. Both of their box arts were done by Bcraft aka Junichi Agutsu, with the illustration and schematics of the MS to be found inside of the manual. Both manuals are basically the same, 4 pages per side, with a bit of cross-promotion on these action display images, showing us the Gundam mass production type that I definitely do not have a story about, Rythzzz 2, and the Guguk Jaeger, which as you can tell I have still not opened and will definitely be reviewing in the future. As for runners, both kits come with 4 polystyrene runners and a polycap runner. Well, sort of. You see, these Gym Command kits are actually based off an older model, the 038 Gym Code Districts type. All 3 of them share plenty of the same runners, but let's not get into the deep pedantic differences of runners per kit. I'm really just mentioning this as we get the smaller runner segment that is still technically counted as part of Runner A, but for some spacing reasons it had to be removed. As for stickers, both kits come with essentially the same sticker sheet, with the only real difference being this green one on the Colony Type's backpack, while the rest of these red ones go onto the side of the legs, front of the crotch, and that long slit between the legs. Settle down boys, come on, we have standards here. After around 70 minutes of assembly for each kit, here's the Gym Command Colony and Space Type fully built. They're basically the exact same kit with just a different color scheme and backpack. It's kind of arbitrary to compare them, but hey, we like being pedantic here on Sadi's Tea. Except for the runner segment, since that'd mean I'd have to explain the injection molding stuff. So here's some reasons to get one release over the other. The sandy beige color of the Colony Command looks much more interesting, as it's not a usual color scheme for gym suits, so it stands out quite nicely and pairs well with the other more rare beige Federation suits like the Gym Kai, or any of those desert recolors from Unicorn. But there's also something so nice about the standard gym colors on the Command Space Type that looks surprisingly appealing. That pure white color looks so gorgeous, and the red really brings out all the chest details. And while I do think the Colony's backpack has more interesting geometry, the compact backpack of the Space Type also looks great, and you can never go wrong with more verniers. Again, this is a more subjective matter on which MS type you'd prefer, but I hope these points I made can be somewhat helpful in choosing only one of these very similar kits. And besides, the aesthetics of the Gym Command is really nothing much to write home about. Not the MS I mean, I really like the Itsubuchi style changes to the classic Gym, with all of those extra little flourishes and geometry and that really nice looking head. It's just that the models themselves are very basic in terms of engineering, using a very simple principle of having 2 main pieces sandwiching together with 1 or 2 polycaps for connecting onto other segments, which as you can tell results in some very visible seam lines on almost every part of the model. I can't necessarily blame the kit too much, I mean it is a bit of an eyesore, but for simplistic humanoid design with not a lot of geometry to break down, it's what we'd come to expect, especially for being released around this time frame. And it's not like this kit is plain to look at, it's still very well detailed and color separated, with that tiny little chin and circles on the head being separate color accurate parrots. The chest and upper vents being separated looks wonderful and makes things so much easier to paint. That was actually one of my biggest peeves with the 047 Alex, so this was just one of those things that you don't really appreciate until it's gone. The rest of the other color inaccurate parts are also very minute, being very minor segments that even in the Gym Sniper 2 released 8 years after this, they still needed to be color corrected. Really, the only part about this model sucks I find to be a bit disappointing is the lack of any sort of detailing behind the clear visor piece. Many modelers, including myself, love it when a model's visor has mechanical detailing behind it since like, come on, how is this not cool? So it is a bit of a shame that there's nothing much to see here, though this is more so just a product of its time as this was actually common for early gym kits. The first HGUC model to actually get details behind their visor is all the way over at 080 with the Blue Destiny Unit 1. It's nice that we get a clear piece in the first place anyways, since it opens up customizing opportunities, but it is unfortunate that straight built. Most that you'll see inside is the ball joint on the head that is pretty limited as it can only look up that far, down almost being non-existent, and can move side to side with a bit of caution as that chin will crash into the collar, and there is this thin antenna piece on the shoulder that you might hit, which has a safety nub that I recommend shaving off. Shoulders are on a peg that lets them swing 360, and the shoulders themselves can move out 90 degrees. bicep swivel. Elbows are on a single joint that also lets them go 90 degrees, but I really like the construction of these elbows as that inner circular piece is actually part separated in a way, which looks quite good if you ask me. And of course, ball joints on the wrist as per standard. Torso is just on a peg too, so they can't move back and forth, but it can swivel 360. But that's going to cause the beam saber holster to fall off, unfortunately. Front skirts can move up this much, but unfortunately cannot be split without any modifications, and the side skirts can move out this much. Legs can move 90 degrees forwards, back not very well, and outwards a bit on that ball joint. Single jointed knees that goes a little over 90 degrees, and the feet share that same system that we get from the Cold District's gym, where the ankle guards are hinged with the shin so it can move up this much, but the feet themselves, they're uniquely on a horizontal ball joint, with the socket and the ankle piece being attached onto the shin, which puts the feet in this awkward axis so the movement doesn't feel natural, but does have a pretty decent amount of range, all things considered. It goes without saying that the articulation on this kit is just fine. It's not bad, and simple articulation is something I've come to really appreciate. While I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, it's passable enough for me, and with enough creativity you can get some fun poses with this model. Though it is hard for me to deny just how lacking this feels, especially for such a sleek design like the Gym Command. And its mobility is actually not too far off from one of my favorite old kits, the original 1144 Gym Command from 1989. And when deconstructed, the build of this kit is fairly typical for a standard Federation unit at the time. If you've built something like the 020 Gym, then you'd know exactly what you're in for. Mostly pegs and a sparse amount of ball joints, so the kit is actually quite friendly for kit mashing. As expected, of course. The only real bespoke aspects to this build are the backpack connectors and the feet, as we've covered earlier. I mean, this foot design is shared with the Cold District's gym, but I did gloss over the fact that this system is actually much like the 1989 Gym Command ankle joint and its incredible downwards point. And speaking of carryovers from the Cold District's gym, you get the very same set of hands from that kit, and each one of them are actually quite unique. Well, there's a caveat to that statement, but that's for later. Starting with the right hands, the first one is of course a trigger finger hand to hold each kit's respective firearm. The Colony type has a top-loaded bullpup SMG that we'll be seeing with a lot of gym kits in the future, and this is where it originally came from, not the same pieces mind you, as this one does have a rather fat handle. And the Space type has its signature beam rifle all in grey, so unfortunately, that canister piece that reminds me of a kid's water gun is color inaccurate. Plenty of other reviewers like Charlie426 and even Dalong painted theirs during their look at this kit, which just kinda goes to show how off it feels without the colors. It really does just remind me more of a Super Soaker than it does the Calico M100. I can't be too harsh though, knowing the price, age, and history of this model's parts, I understand why it's all in grey, and credit where it's due. The detailing is actually quite nice, and it's one of the major selling points of this kit since no other HG model has this. Putting the beam rifle in the Space type's hands is pretty easy, but to get the bullpup in, you'd have to open up the hands and feed a finger into the trigger. Both weapons are pretty loose fits inside of their rather big yaoi hands, though the trigger guard does help in keeping the bullpup inside of the hands of the Colony kit. Then the next right hand is the fully molded beam saber, a thing from the past that not many modelers look back on well. But the hands and hilts are nicely sculpted, and the hilts are actually unique per kit. That's why I had the whole caveat thing of this being from the Cold District's type. If you like this sort of thing, both kits do fortunately have one. But if you're against this, well, at the very least the Space type is I believe the very last kit to have this type of beam saber. Poor guy. But also we do get a pair of actual beam saber hilts stored onto the back skirts, which do accept 1.5mm beam effects, albeit rather tightly, that you can get from donations from other kits. And the hilts do go into the right trigger finger hand surprisingly decently, and same goes for the left gripping hand. The only other hand we have left is, funnily enough, a left open palm that is surprisingly well sculpted, like genuinely it's very well mechanically detailed with its geometry, and looks much nicer than the standard hands we get nowadays, which just looks a bit boring. And as for our final accessory, we get the standard shield for the Gym Command, which goes into the arm via this adapter piece going into the 3mm hole on the back of its arms, and the adapter's ball joint goes into the socket in the shield as per standard back in 2004. There is also this static handle that goes into the left gripping hand, locking the shield in place. As expected, the build of the shield is very simplistic and a bit underwhelming, especially as we have gotten much better renditions of this shield with the 076 Blue Destiny Unit 2 and its most recent depiction with the 208 Blue Destiny Unit 2 Exam. They may be slightly different, I mean they don't have the stored mags inside of the shield, but at least outwardly they look much closer than the ones that you get from the Advance of Zeta or the Stardust Memory kits. And I know what you're thinking, Sadi, you forgot the shield of the 146 Gym Sniper too. Surprisingly, no. The shield design on them are slightly different, so that's a bit odd. In comparing both of these shields, I slightly prefer the command shield over the ones from the Sniper 2. It's much thicker and has the Federation symbol molded in, so this shield is actually quite detailed for what it is. Although the Sniper 2 does sit on the kit much better than the command does, I don't really like how low it is on the commands. And speaking of the Gym Sniper 2, here's my 2 gym commands next to my HGUC 146 Gym Sniper 2. Probably won't review this guy anytime soon, so my short thoughts on it, it's good. Maybe a little bit underwhelming as a straight model, but fun to mess around with and great for kit bashing as well. And then of course the 038 Gym Cold Districts type, since they are essentially the same kits. Here they are next to my custom 047 NT1 Alex, 087 Zakukai or FZ, now with the proper head since apparently I forgot at the HGUC review, and their worst fear, the 089 Camphor. As for their actual size, they stand at around 12.5 centimeters, which is the standard size for a 1-year Ward HG kit, but also does make this kit mathematically check out as 1/144th scale. And to put this figure into perspective, here's the Figma Styles female-bodied Chiaki, the Furyu Takaradarika, and the Sega PM figure Mamoha Oski, and also a 1/144th scale full frontal, just to put into perspective how tall this MS is. Moving to my final thoughts, and well, there really isn't much more for me to say. They're simple early HGUC kits. They're not trying to wow us with ambitious tricks. They're doing exactly what they're set out to do, which is portray the gym command. An MS that doesn't really have much headlining fame, so interest in this kit is mostly out of its mechanical design, i.e. love for its character, and I'd say this model does a great job at giving us the gym command experience. It's not the most impressive experience, mind you, but everything this kit does offer us I think is perfectly acceptable, maybe even kinda cool depending on your taste, because I love these models to death and I can't really put my finger as to why. So if you're looking for either MS or even just one of them, I'd say these kits are pretty great options to put in your collection, and also compliments to the space type for being easy to find. The master grade one is P Bandai, so good luck with that. And that about finishes my review of the HGUC 046 Gym Command and 051 Gym Command Space Type. 2 more kits to add to my 0080 collection, and I'm almost halfway done with the entire HG lineup. If Bandai didn't just hate me and release the Drake and E for some reason. If you'd like to support what we do here on Sadi's Tea, consider giving this video a like, sharing the video around, and subscribing to the channel so you'd catch up on all the latest reviews we have here on Sadi's Tea. Or you can check out my social media sites for earlier updates. All support is very much welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for stopping by for some tea.